from ODOT. Don't think so. All right, let's call the meeting to order. And I'm just pulling up my agenda. Give me 1 second, please. All right, great. Thank you. And then Travis, I'll just hand it off to you if you want to provide the update we were just discussing about the session.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Thanks, Commissioner Chapman. So I'm Travis Brower for those you who may not know me, but I think I've been here a couple of times. I am stepping in a little bit today as sort of interim executive sponsor for this committee. Leah Horner left the agency back in July. And so we're in a little bit of an interim period. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is going on with the legislature to the extent we know, the legislation that's coming out of that. And that is really as context because the legislation that is being discussed, HB 3991, is proposing some major changes to the CIAC, which is created under legislative direction. So we'll walk you through that and talk about, just some preliminary thoughts about where this committee may go, given the new direction. So next slide, please. We are in the process of a legislative special session that started August 29th, was supposed to wrap up by September 3rd, then was delayed for 2 weeks, and now is delayed for another week and a half until at least September 29th, due to one legislator who unfortunately had a health issue and is not able to attend the session in person to supply the 18th vote needed for the funding package that is under consideration. That package is HB 3991, which, if passed, would give ODOT the resources needed to avoid layoffs and deep reductions we will otherwise need to make this biennium. It would also increase local government funding by about 30% because this money is split half between ODOT and half to local governments. It will also provide a temporary boost to public transportation funding by doubling the payroll tax for 2 years. And, one of the things that you'll see in this legislation is it makes some pretty substantial changes to how we fund transportation in Oregon, particularly with how we tax trucks and the shift from charging highly efficient vehicles or charging them by the mile rather than by the gallon as we do today. So very significant from a policy standpoint in terms of how we pay for transportation. And then the pieces we'll talk most about because they impact CIAC is the pieces around accountability for outcomes through more audits and oversight. So next slide, please. I'll walk through just very briefly some of the background on the legislation because it is very impactful to how ODOT will be able to meet its mission if this is passed. This legislation would increase fuels tax by 6 cents per gallon, increase registration fees, just both the base fee and the surcharge that we have for efficient vehicles. It increases the one-time title fee that people pay when they purchase a vehicle. It also would make us only the second state in the nation to have a mandatory road usage charge for more fuel-efficient vehicles. And it makes a number of really important changes to how we tax trucks with our very unique system of weight mile tax. So we'll become a little bit less unique, but in some good ways, I think. Next slide, please. Over time, this would bring in a substantial amount of revenue. The revenue increases would start in December. Revenue would increase over time through the next couple of biennia before it really starts to flatten out after all of those increases go into effect, after the new revenue sources come online. However, the legislature in the end did not include indexing of any of our taxes in this legislation. So really over time, we see that it really does not keep up with inflation. I ran the numbers yesterday, and beyond 2029, we have about a 1.6% increase annually in the revenue coming in from this package, which is not going to keep up with inflation by any means. So we look at this as a fix that will help us really for probably 3 to 4 years. But after that point, we will be seeing our costs growing at a much faster rate than our revenue, and we will be back into a place of likely having to make some reductions. Next slide, please. So in terms of the distribution of revenue, as I noted earlier, it goes about half to ODOT and half to cities and counties. There's also a little bit of money that goes to rest areas to stave off reductions in service in that part of the transportation system. That's operated by the Travel Information Council in Oregon. So next slide, please.
Travis, sorry, is that the current distribution between cities, counties, and state, or in the proposed legislation revenue? Or
Good question.
both?
That is just the proposed legislation.
Okay.
Yeah, it is similar to the distribution that we have overall, but the overall distribution is a blend of, this will be the 6th layer of funding, and each of them is distributed somewhat differently. This one, overall, it's about 55% comes to ODOT, 45% to local government. So this one leans a little bit more toward local governments. So within ODOT, all the funding will go to operations and maintenance. And that's a big change because in the past, most of our funding packages have focused on the capital side of the equation, funding construction projects, which is actually why we're in the space that we're in today. Because even though we've gotten, 4 funding packages over the course of the last 24 years, all that money essentially has gone into construction and not into maintenance. So if passed, this would allow ODOT to cancel layoffs and reverse most of the reductions, although it does actually layer in some reductions. We've already taken reductions for the last couple of biennia, and this would add some reductions on top of that. So it's not as if we're coming out of this fat and happy. We were actually reducing our budget by over $150 million this biennium compared to what it otherwise would be. But that would, if passed, allow us to have service levels fairly similar in our maintenance area to 23-25 biennium before we got into this period of deep reductions. Next slide, please. So as I noted, there's significant funding for local governments, about a 30% increase, $295 million for cities and counties, growing to about $380 million in the following biennium. There's additional money for small cities and also a set aside for small counties as well. So local governments are very pleased with this, and they've been very supportive of this effort because they face maybe not the same acute issue that ODOT does, but certainly some are beginning to teeter at the edge of having to do layoffs or other service reductions because of the falling value of the State Highway Fund. Next slide, please. All right, so now we get into the accountability and oversight provisions that begin to impact the CIAC. In this legislation, there was obviously a significant interest, as there was in HB 2017, with ensuring accountability and performance at ODOT. So there are a number of elements that are built into this that help build on some of the work we've done, whether that is a management review that Ms. Hammond and her team from WSP did for us a little over a year ago, or a managerial review the legislature undertook related to major projects. This bill includes a requirement for biennial audits by the Secretary of State, including project delivery and state highway fund use. We already receive a number of audits from the Secretary of State, so I think this will sort of build on that oversight regime we already have in place. There's also a review by the Legislative Policy and Research Office of ODOT operations, including implementation of the managerial review that I mentioned that the legislature undertook, which really focused on our delivery of major projects. Interestingly, this bill does not fund the major projects. So there will be some important decisions that Commissioner Chapman and other members of the Transportation Commission have to make about how we move forward with some of those major projects, given that there are no additional resources coming in for them. One of the provisions that it was noted was the hiring and retention of the ODOT director shifts to the governor for future directors. And there's also a requirement for a process whereby project scope and budget increases that are brought forward by local governments have to be reviewed and approved by the Oregon Transportation Commission and are also shared with the Legislative Committee on Transportation, or Joint Committee on Transportation. That is really a provision that primarily came out of the Rose Quarter project, where there was a significant amount of additional cost and scope added to the project through the local process that we have to go through for projects. And so there was concern by the legislature. They want to have a little bit better insight into where local governments are making requests that do add scope and cost. This will be interesting in particular because we really want to be able to work with local governments to make sure that we're building projects that are appropriate for our communities. And this is not a barrier to doing that. It just adds some steps of review and oversight by the Transportation Commission when those things happen. And then most importantly for this group, the changes are made to the CIAC and how the Joint Committee on Transportation will provide oversight and reporting on major projects that are defined as over $250 million. So a fairly small number within ODOT. So next slide, please. I'm going to focus now on just that specific area because there are some significant changes to the CIAC. The legislature specifies in statute the membership of the CIAC, but until now they've been very non-prescriptive. Now they're becoming much more prescriptive about who should sit on this body. So the statute now says, if passed, that it will include members, plural, of the Oregon Transportation Commission, the ODOT director, the ODOT chief engineer, individuals with expertise in planning, executing, and delivering major projects, and at least one person with NEPA application and implementation experience. So while the statute isn't explicit, as we've talked with legislators, as they've made their intent clear about the CIAC, this body is to really become a body that will review and provide oversight over our major projects and project delivery to ensure that we're effectively delivering those projects on time and on budget. Within the statute, it notes that the CIAC will meet at least once a month, develop performance measures, and report quarterly to the OTC and the Joint Committee on Transportation on the status of those performance measures. That's actually not a change, but our understanding is they really want us to focus on the project delivery related performance measures. As you can imagine, not all performance measures that we have really are amenable to quarterly reporting. You know, bridges, they don't change that much on a quarterly basis, but you certainly can report on how you're doing in terms of projects that are wrapping up on a quarterly basis. And then again, in alignment with existing statute, they didn't change this, but it's report quarterly to the OTC and JCT on ways ODOT and OTC can execute their duties more efficiently. And actually, I should note, I think previously there was a requirement for a annual or biennial report. Now it is a regular report from this body to the OTC and the Joint Committee on Transportation. The Joint Committee on Transportation statute is also changed really to essentially become a receiving body for the work that the CIAC does on a regular basis. They will review the scope, schedule, and budget of major projects on a quarterly basis. Today, they do that in a fairly ad hoc manner in that we typically do presentations to the Joint Committee once to twice annually, but now it will become a quarterly process. And we would envision that there will be some dashboards and reports and information provided at their request, that we'll work with them to develop that be provided on a regular basis and in a standardized format so that they can provide that effective oversight of the projects. They will also be reviewing the local government request for project scope expansion that I mentioned earlier. So I think that was the last slide. Is there anything more in this presentation? Oh, yes. Sorry, the next steps of this. We are still having initial discussions within the agency and need to talk with the OTC, of course, about what the CIAC will look like going forward, as it really is to be something that the commission directs this work. They have always been the body that has overseen the CIAC and received its work. So we're looking that this fall, we will likely start a reset of the membership, again, contingent on direction from the OTC. And then in winter of 2026, onboard new members who are in alignment with the membership requirements of the statute, draft an updated charter, and then have the beginning of those first quarterly updates due to the Oregon Transportation Commission and the Joint Committee on Transportation. I can't say anything about any particular individual member, who we may ask to remain on the committee versus what positions may turn over. It's too early to say anything about that, but I will tell you there will be almost certainly a significant membership change in order to meet the new statutory requirements. So I will stop there.
I have my hand up, and so does Rod. It was just a clarification. Could you go back one slide on the JCT quarterly reviews? Is that all projects or only those over 250,000?
It's only the
Okay.
major projects over $250
Okay.
million. So
Oh,
we may
million.
provide,
Yeah, that makes a difference.
it's really probably about
Okay.
7 projects. I think we've
Got
added,
it.
many of which are actually just in the planning or NEPA stage. They
Yeah.
are not actually under construction or have funding available. So in that sense, we may very well work with them to expand on that a little bit and share information about, say projects over $50 million. Because some that you'll hear about today, like the US 97 Bend North Corridor project, a really important project, major project, but didn't hit that $250 million threshold. Same with our Oregon 217 project we're finishing up right now.
Thanks.
So if I understand this new membership, there will be no elected officials at all on this committee going forward. Is that correct?
Mayor Cross, it's a good question because it doesn't say there can't be. It doesn't say there will be.
Sorry.
And so this is where I hesitate to get out in front of Commissioner Chapman and other members of the commission. I do think that there's clearly not a direction to include local government officials, and so that's one of the things we're going to have to grapple with is who can best fulfill the needs that are clear from the legislature about overseeing these major projects. And I think we're going to get a little bit more direction from them too as they talk about it a little bit more. There was fairly limited conversation when they were drafting this section about what it meant. And we may get some clarification from them that will help us with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions about these slides? Oh, Ted?
Travis, it's Ted Odlin. Will we be able to get real information on the overview? In the past, we've been given kind of a story of how things went, but we've never seen the numbers, the figures, the price of the project when it was bid, the cost of what it was, the change orders that were out there, the difficulties that we're run into. We've been kind of given a glorified view of what's out there to stamp approval on. And if we're going to get into this, it would really be good if we could put together an outline of the information we need so we can really tell what's going on a project.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something we've had some discussions about internally as we're starting to develop what we think would be a good dashboard and reporting structure, of putting some of those specific details in that to show, what was the original cost estimate versus what is the expected cost today, or what is the after all change orders, what is the construction cost or construction authorization. Some of those details that I think will allow for a little bit more standard reporting on projects. I'll note Kat Silva is here today. She is going to help us with some of this work, standing up the CIAC or rejiggering the CIAC and standing up some of our work around the major projects reporting. And so it might be helpful at some point for any of you who have thoughts about what would constitute important information that we should be providing to allow that deeper dive into projects, to provide that to this group. And we can then work to incorporate that into that reporting structure that Tova and Kat and others, Amanda and others within the agency are working on right now to really just start developing.
I'd be happy to help on that. And I, could kind of give them, but what it does, one project, it could be an anomaly, but if it's happening on project after project after project, then it becomes a real issue that we can look at and try to cure rather than just be given fluff and hope we kind of go away with an approval.
Mhm.
So I'll help you in any way I can.
Okay. Good. Yeah, we may want to have some structure for gathering some of that, or even a conversation around this table could be helpful.
All right, thank you, Travis. I think we can move on to the KPI annual report with Tova and Angela.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of an introduction to this as the executive sponsor of our KPM work. We are required to bring to you a report on how we're performing against the legislative key performance measures. We did that back in August, as you recall. We did that by email because we did not have a meeting scheduled during that time frame. So we appreciate you responding to that, but then we really wanted to have more of a conversation. Originally, this meeting was scheduled for after the OTC was going to meet. And so it was perhaps more of a perfunctory conversation. Now, the OTC will be receiving this report at the end of this month. We had to move the OTC meeting out because of the lack of action on the special session. So my point being, the conversation here today will be something we can carry forward. Both Commissioner Chapman and those of us who will be presenting in front of the OTC can take the comments and feedback and input from today and be able to share that with the commission so that they get all of that information. So I will turn it over to Amanda for the next couple of slides. You can go to the next slide, please.
Gross. So I'm Amanda Peets. I'm the Division Administrator for Policy Data and Analysis. So just to give some framing of what the key performance measures are, and many of you, I'm sure, are aware of the different types of measures that are out there. From measures I use more in my shop for planning policy work for some of our investment decisions, we think of those as leading measures. They're really predictive of what we think will happen once we make a certain decision or make certain investments. There's also lagging measures that are important to see if the outcomes that we envisioned actually are what came about. And then there's two other types of measures that are important to acknowledge. One is output measures. So think of that as just sheer volumes of things. So for example, in any winter season, how many tons of salt do we go through and use? That's more of an output measure. Whereas the outcome of the winter maintenance work may be the amount of roads that we're able to keep open, travel times, some of those kinds of things, safety incidents, and so on. So all these different types of measures are important, some more for reporting, where it's just higher level, kind of the red flag if we see a problem, versus diagnostic of where we drill in, we see what is the root of those issues and how do we deal with them. So all of these are important both from kind of an external basis and certainly for the work that we do internally. So we really have the mindset as an organization to make sure that we're being transparent in our decisions and also using good data and information to make better decisions in the future. Next slide. In terms of key performance measures, we think of those as more lagging measures for the most part, the reporting the outcome of something that's happened. Sometimes those are output type measures, as you'll see as we go through some of those, or as you've looked at the report before. Primarily a report that's given to the legislature, they're pretty high level that just flag if we have a problem. They're not really the diagnostic type measures that dive into things. Whereas, as I mentioned earlier, in plans and our investment programs, we use more of the leading measures to predict what the outcomes may be and try to make sure that we're advancing things like safety with dollars that we spend from NHTSA and other locations. And then we really make sure that we're doing that diagnostic analysis afterwards so that we're tweaking our programs, getting closer to those outcomes that we know we need to get to. Similar on kind of the programs and other activities like project delivery, you'll see some of statistics here in this presentation for kind of how we're doing on estimation. To Ted's points earlier on, what are some of the diagnostic issues that we're seeing of why we might be off on some of our projects and some of those kind of things, and making sure we're using those in our analysis. So with that, I'll turn it back to Travis to talk about the KPMs, and then I'll share a couple of those results myself as well.
Thanks, Amanda. Next slide, please. So key performance measures are sort of a unique beast, and the process by which they're created provides both some benefits as well as some limitations. The key performance measures are a limited set of measures, and as Amanda noted, they're more sort of the lagging output or outcome measures that the legislature has asked us to report on. So you'll oftentimes see that they are of topics that are very high level. Sometimes they are areas that ODOT has a lot of ability to help influence the outcome. Sometimes not nearly as much. And I know that's been a topic of conversation in past years around this table. What we're required to do with these measures is have them reviewed by the CIAC and then report to the OTC on our progress and outcomes. And then those reports are shared with the Legislative Fiscal Office and the Department of Administrative Services. So this is a very prescriptive process where we get to come in and share thoughts and ideas about what our key performance measures should probably be. But it is ultimately the legislature who both sets what the measure is and what the target is. There have been times we've come in and said, we think we should create a new measure, or we should modify a measure or get rid of a measure. And the legislature says, nope. So they really ultimately own these measures. Next slide, please.
Travis, could I ask a quick question? They set the measures and the targets. Do they match the targets and outcomes to the revenue that they provide for you?
Well, that would be nice if they did. And there might be an argument that in some cases they do. I would say typically not. We have had it in the past, a couple of times where, say, we've had a measure where we're doing better than the target. And so the legislature will then automatically jack up the target to where we're at, or even above where we're at, to be somewhat aspirational. Even if we've said, whoa, yes, we are meeting our bridge performance measure, but we know it's going to go down from here. So I would say the target is somewhat separate from the actual ability to meet that target, and fairly aspirational in many cases.
Okay.
So we have four broad categories, or four broad areas in which we have key performance measures. Safety, obviously, is job one. Stewardship, which is sort of an amalgamation of, how are we doing in terms of our customer service and our stewardship of public funds in bringing projects in on time and on budget. Preservation of the system, and then a broad range of multimodal mobility measures across multiple different modes of transportation. And you'll notice that there are, passenger rail, bicycle and pedestrian transit, and road traffic congestion. So really trying to get to all the major modes for which we have some significant responsibility. These are all, as I noted, set by the legislature. There was one point where I think we had something like 28 key performance measures. It was a little ridiculous. And so over time, we have pared it back to what we think are probably some of the most meaningful. I will say that we wouldn't necessarily say these are all the most important measures, but it is the ones that the legislature seems to want to hold us accountable to. So there's a little bit of a tension between what ODOT might put forward as a key performance measure and what the legislature thinks we should be accountable to. And as noted earlier, not all of these are ones that we can readily influence in quite the same way. Bridge and pavement condition, we may arguably have quite a bit of control over. Transit rides, when really that is a function of dozens of local transit providers across the state, probably is an area that we have much less influence over. Next slide, please. We take all these 13 performance measures, and each year we look at how are we doing on them? Are we on target or are we off target? Again, sometimes the target may be a little bit aspirational. So just because we're off target doesn't necessarily mean we're doing badly. We just may not be doing as well as we or the legislature would want. We also look at where we are steady or improving or worsening. And what we're going to do today is really focus on those in that lower right quadrant, the ones where we're off target and worsening. Bridge condition, construction projects on time, fatal and serious injuries rate, and DBE utilization. We'll also talk a little bit about construction projects on budget, because on time and on budget really kind of come together in a similar way, and they're very relevant to the work of this committee, especially going forward. We're happy to try to answer questions on other ones of these as well. I think we have folks who can probably try to answer those questions across any of the different performance measures. So with that, I will turn it over to Angela to talk about the DBE utilization. KP.
All right, thanks, Travis. Good afternoon, Angela Crane, manager here within ODOT's Office of Engagement and Civil Rights. So I am going to just step back for a second with this slide and provide more definitions as kind of the first step on what this slide is about when it comes to actual, goal, and utilization. While the KPM, as you can see in the title, is the percent of ODOT awarded contracts to Oregon DBEs. When we look at actual is the percent of dollars paid to DBEs as required by FHWA on a uniform report semi-annually. So actual is dollars paid. The goal row is up from 17 through 2021. That was a time period that the goal was related to DBE triennial goal, again, as required by our disparity study and FHWA. And then it transitioned in 2022 through 24 to a 25% aspirational target, just related to the KPM. Now, when we say DBE utilization or the green area, that is actually the KPM, the percent of ODOT awarded contracts. So when you look across for 2024, the measurement of the KPM, we're actually at 33.53% as compared to a 25% target. So that's the apples and apples. However, having the actual in there, which is dollars paid, came in a little higher than the 8.5%, which is lower, but that technically is not the KPM. So I wanted to kind of bring some definitions to those because unintentionally it can get confusing on what is utilization and what is actual. So the non-KPM, again, is what is declining, and the KPM is actually exceeding what we would anticipate from the 25%. So with the switch in the KPM from 21 to 22, that's where we went to an aspirational target and are completely measuring something different. So number of contracts then has gone up that have gone to DBEs. However, the dollar value of those contracts have been declined as it relates to dollars paid through the FHWA requirements. Ted?
Ted, you're muted. Sorry, Ted, we still can't hear you. You're muted.
My question is, are you taking the type of work that you're bidding into effect of this? You've been putting out a lot of paving projects, and there's not great opportunity for minorities when it's straight paving of projects, as there is when we're building bridges, walls, and so on. And so I think your utilization by dollar amount is going to go less, even though you're putting out more work.
So Correct. The actual the dollar amounts relates to the goal setting process for each of those projects that determine availability of DBEs, which potentially could be less on a paving project as compared to a bridge. But then when you're looking at utilization, number of contracts, like what you said, we could be getting more contracts, less dollars, but this also accounts for personal services as well. So professional services, consulting contracts are within both the actual and utilization. So it's just all the data related to actual and or utilization.
That's still off balance a little bit with the type of work you're bidding out because you're not going to get a lot of engineering and so on paving jobs because there isn't any.
Mhm.
So I think you really need to add in the type of work that's being bid and the opportunities that are there.
Thank you. So one of the areas that in bringing to this group that we want to discuss is, so for the actual, which is not the KPM, it's additional information, but it's not compared to 25%, it's compared to the DBE triennial goal, where to kind of move forward with this, because we can explain through our federal reporting, and then also some of the factors that we've noted in the slide is, the decline in the dollars paid, and our analysis as to why. But then you look at utilization is exceeding the KPM, exceeding the aspirational target of 25%. So, one of the things that we want to look at is, are we measuring what we want to measure? Are we displaying in both actual and utilization what we want to display, what story we want to tell, what numbers we want to tell, what analysis compared to that? So this has kind of been step one here and going, do we need to revisit this? Because now that we've really rolled up our sleeves on it and even preparation, it's like, it is a bit confusing as well. And what does utilization, number of contracts really mean as compared to opportunities, wealth creation, and all of that? So I'll pause there for a second if there's any other questions or direction on that. Or if you'd also want to hear is, why are the dollars declining? We've got some analysis on that as well.
Go ahead, Ted. Or is your hand just up from before?
Can you explain to me how you're getting the growth of wealth in that?
So that would be the actual, which is at the 8.54% is the dollars paid. Our current goal for FHWA related to the 8.54% is 23.43%, based on the disparity study. So that's how we come up with the actual hard goal. And then each project, we're analyzing those opportunities for DBEs and looking at types of work, dollar values. And then, the goal with the DBE program is that they're no longer a DBE in the future because they're growing their business, which is creating that wealth creation where they graduate out of the program. So the dollars paid is looking at that wealth creation, not just merely how many contracts did they get, because those could be, $1,000 contracts, not $1 million contracts. So it's a completely different metric.
Paula.
Well, I commented that this is such a complex issue, you might benefit from breaking up some of the data with different charts. But I'm also curious, when you're using terms like a significant number of DBE firms or a percentage of work, we have challenges with DBEs, might be useful to show what's happened to the DBE community and availability, as well as your numbers of projects somewhere. It just feels like there's a lot of questions that can come up based on the factors that we're given.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So We do receive kind of the DBE universe from the certification office, and then kind of being able to dismantle that information on how many DBEs, types of work or NAICS codes, where in the state they're at, and then looking at our forecasting tools or the STIP on here's what's coming up, and kind of how do we marry that up when it comes to the DBE program and our assigned triennial DBE goal. And that's where you kind of ratchet up, ratchet down so we can meet that goal. But how do we meet that goal? So thank you for that. I definitely appreciate, and that's something I can work back with the team on, or Travis, Serena on how do we either can enhance this a little bit? Do we need further discussion on what we're actually measuring? Is there an opportunity to shift some of this slide? So that's definitely things I think we would like to consider.
Now put my hand.
Well, Serena, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm curious if you've got any insights from your engagement with the contractor community.
Hi, Alicia. No, not at all. I think what it is there's just work that needs to be done on building up our DBE, and also where they are. But that's just a stronger partnership that we have to do, and that's something that we are currently always working on. I think we have to do better with our COVID program, and the benefits that our DBEs get from there, or what they're not getting from there, and making sure that we improve those relationships. And what does that mean for ODOT as we move forward?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thank you, Serena.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from our board members? Thank you, Angela.
Let's go next slide. I think I'm up for safety. So the safety metric here for the key performance measures looks at the rate of traffic fatalities and serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So obviously safety is the top priority of our agency, something we try to embed in everything that we do. And this is a super important metric to test and see where we are, and make sure we're moving in the wrong direction. As you can see here, we're not moving in the right direction. We're seeing more, especially serious injuries, as I'll talk about here in a moment. And we're still at kind of decades high fatalities and serious injuries overall. For vehicle miles traveled, I'll just note that vehicle miles traveled have increased slightly in recent years in total. Per capita, they've actually declined about 9% from 1990 levels. But it is trying to really get the rate of exposure to what we're seeing for fatalities and serious injuries. On the next slide, you'll see some shots from the State of the System dashboard. This is something that I brought to the Continuous Improvement Advisory Committee. You all gave some great feedback that led to the creation of this, and it being refined over time. But this is really where we're trying to keep updates at least twice a year, ideally quarterly, that kind of show what the trends are on a number of key areas. For safety, it allows us to do more of the diagnostics than that high level of reporting measure from the KPM. So I just wanted to say, because safety is so important, that's obviously something, like many things, we drill into deeper to see what's going on here. As I mentioned, what we see from the data and information is that while we're seeing a slight drop in fatalities in 2024 and thus far in 2025, we're actually seeing a pretty steep increase in serious injuries. Serious injuries in many ways are just as important as fatalities. They're life-altering for the people and the families that are impacted by it. So it's obviously something we want to pay attention to. As we've looked across other states, Oregon's actually had a steeper rise than other states, including our neighboring states and many other states across the U.S. So part of what we're looking into is that an artifact of reporting or data in some manner. What we've found thus far is it doesn't appear to be, or can't be confirmed at this point, but that's still something that we're digging into and identifying. In terms of what we're seeing, impairment continues to be an issue, not just impairment in terms of alcohol use or drug use, but really the polysubstance. Multiple impairments that are affecting driving are going up and going up pretty substantially. We see more aging drivers involved in crashes, particularly kind of over the age 65 and over, being involved in crashes. And then we've looked at the differences between urban and rural areas because we have very different parts of the state. It's important to identify what issues we're seeing unique to those. For urban areas, we see that most intersections, over half, most crashes occur at intersections, over half of them. A lot involve pedestrians and bicyclists, so those that are very exposed to crashes and most vulnerable. And then in rural areas, a lot of that is run off the road. So lane departure crashes, about 64% of those. So either crossing the center line or running off the road. So treatments like rumble strips, things like that can be very effective. And as we have the conversation on transportation funding, ability to maintain our system, there's a lot of connections between safety there too. So just as an example, when roads are in a state of disrepair, we can't add the rumble strips in that are life-saving to people. So there's such a tie between all the work that we do and many of these outcomes that we're reporting on here. Happy to take any questions on the safety piece. Yeah, Mayor Cross.
So how long before, so I'll take Highway 20, for example, and I'll use the stretch between Sisters and Bend. You've put in several roundabouts. Have we been able to see for lack of a better word, a substantial decrease in the amount of crashes through there?
Yeah, so we have in those areas and then generally. So we have done lots of research on the national level and at the statewide level to determine what effective safety countermeasures are and how much those really can save people's lives. So whereas with roundabouts, often we may see some rear end crashes, but we don't see the fatalities, the serious injuries that were once happening in those areas. So they are very effective.
The reason I was asking is because if you look at Highway 18, Highway 20, and I believe it's 26 out of Eugene to Florence, those, at least as from the numbers I've been seeing, those keep going up. And I can tell you as a community on one of those routes, the number of the amount of traffic we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years has, in our, at least in the eyeball test, and I know that's not accurate, has almost doubled. And not just for 3 months of the year. It's now up to where we just say tourist season goes from spring break to to Christmas, and then we get a few months break. Because the traffic has been that much of an increase, at least in our roads that I see here. And so I'm curious if we're going to look at more of those type of measures like you've used in Eastern Oregon to try and help modulate the, shall we say, the people that think that if they get to the coast 5 minutes earlier than they would have traveling the speed limit would be more effective. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Cross. And our safety programs and investments, we really use and rely on the data of crashes so that we can see changes in that. Not only over the last several years, but are we seeing spikes more frequently? So we've started to get more real-time data and information, especially on fatalities, so that we can analyze those more quickly, try to be more responsive to those, and identify some of those countermeasures that work the best. So really, what is the right engineering solution for those locations? That is more kind of the back look, the responsive to what we're seeing as terms of crashes. We also try to be more proactive as well and identify risks. So when we're seeing increases in speeding in an area, we're seeing increases in traffic volumes of just going through, then that's increasing the risk of some of those facilities. So as we have funds to try to be more proactive, those are important investments as well. Thank you. Ted.
Amanda, is there anything on phone use? I know on project sites, it's a killer for us. We get people going through texting or reading and not paying attention. I'm wondering, I don't see it on your factors. I'm curious what you found on that.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. That's a great point. So distracted driving continues to be an issue with us, whether that's phone use or some other form of distraction while people are using their vehicles. On the chart to the lower right, it shows some of the top factors involved in crashes. And so while it's not one of the leading things that you'll see that's contributing to many of the crashes, that's an area that's gone up 67% from the last reporting period. So we are seeing an increase in distraction, and I think the need for education out there to be responsible driving and not try to be distracted, as well as the enforcement element. All right.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions on the KPM? If not, I think we can move on to the major projects update. Ben, Omar, and Zach.
Hey, thanks. I'll actually just take
Wait.
over sharing screen. Or sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, there's
Ted,
still several
there's more
slides left
slides,
in
right?
that presentation.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, thank you.
All good. I think I'm jumping in here for slides 10, 11, and 12.
Go ahead.
Great. Hello, CIAC. I am Topeka Health statewide capital program engineer, and I'm going to cover the bridge condition and construction cost and budget. On the bridge condition front, we are seeing that we are off target on bridge condition, which is percentage of bridges that are not in distressed condition. Our goal is to maintain 78% of our bridges in better than distressed condition, and we're seeing like we saw a decline in 2024. Overall, we're continuously assessing bridge conditions and producing a regular report of bridge conditions, and have really emphasized trying to keep prevent bridges from falling into poor condition with our aging bridges and our funding not going as far as it once did, and being reduced. Like we're struggling to maintain the condition of the bridges, and are anticipating that we're going to be falling further off target over time. And I think the first bullet here that flags the new House Bill 2017 funding and federal IIJA funding, and none of that's new anymore. It did not stop, it didn't stop the decline. It really did just slow it. And we are currently looking at how we're going to manage the decline given funding circumstances. We're really trying to preserve the system that we have, and take care of it. And we really rely on maintenance to address that, and to keep bridges in fair condition. But that can certainly be challenging. And as I know, we've talked about quite a bit, our replacement cycle for bridges is at the 900 year mark to fully replaced. It's far longer than the lifespan that goes into design, that we're anticipating when we design and construct a bridge. So we are managing a declining system at this time, and we'll continue to lean into the maintenance work to take care of existing bridges. That's a lot of ongoing cleaning and small painting jobs and so on, to protect bridge condition as much as possible.
Paula, I see your hand.
This was one of the slides that I had commented, Commissioner, when I emailed you back my thoughts on some of the slides. It's really the area on factors. When I think of factors, it seems like it would make sense to hear why the bridge condition is worsening and off target, rather than these seem to be more projected despair of lack of investment, and maybe just some statistics or details in the factor side about what is putting the bridges in this condition. I assume it's lack of funding.
Yes.
But some specifics around that? or heightened scour on bridge foundation, something that's what's driving the fact that the conditions are not meeting the goals. To me, that would make sense. And I do think there's room here to say, oh, by the way, this is getting worse, and we have aging bridges, or there's a bow wave of old bridges coming due. But I don't know if other people agree with me, but it felt like I wanted some details on that factors about why specifically we weren't meeting the targets.
Well, I think that's a great suggestion, and it's definitely something we can adjust as we share the information in the future. To your point, what are the factors? I think it's a combination of like reduced investment and and aging bridges. I know that our 2024 annual bridge report also like one of the things that we shared is that the emphasis on how salt and de-icer are contributing to corrosion of
Deck
bridge structure, like
conditions,
to
yeah.
deck conditions. That's absolutely a factor. And as we're
Mhm.
seeing more extreme weather events and we're doing more preventative measures for like system operations for mobility, like that is having a negative impact on bridge condition. And we are absolutely seeing that. We're seeing some bridge decks that are in poor and in disrepair much faster than we had anticipated, and that's attributed to an increase in the use of like de-icing products for extreme weather events. I don't think that we have I don't have great data on whether like extreme like more severe weather events are adding to like are contributing to more scour. I think that there's
Mhm.
certainly when we have severe weather events like we certainly see that across the system. What that means collectively across the 2,700 bridges, I'm not sure, and I don't know that we have that level of information yet, though I expect that we will over more time. I think one of the biggest factors is just the how what a large percentage of our bridges are 50 years old and or are 50 years or older, and and how much more work it takes to maintain those and preserve those, and how slow in the scheme of things we are doing to do replacements. The impending like the age of the interstate era bridges and the volume of interstate era bridges is certainly upon us, and that is or rapidly approaching. I think 15 years from now, we really need to be in a position where we are aggressively replacing the interstate era bridges. Those were originally constructed about, I want to say about 60 bridges a year. Obviously, like we're in no position to replace them at that rate. So those are all factors.
And it might be useful too. I know when the bridge inspections happen, they inspect various elements, whether it's
Mhm.
foundations or decks or connectors. If you had specificity around which parts or elements of the bridge are in distress, is it more deck related? Is it expansion joints? Is
Oh,
it
I love,
foundations?
yeah, that's a
Maybe
great,
that gives to me, I'm just craving data rather than just
uh,
hearing distressed.
I love that suggestion. That's a great
Okay.
suggestion.
And
Thank
that's
you.
really what we need to determine where to go in the future is what
Yeah.
elements are going bad on
Hmm.
us. What can we
Hmm.
do to save them? If it's bridge decks, there's multiple things we can do. If it's
Right.
foundations, it's totally a different ballgame. So it would be great if we could get that information.
Absolutely. And we have that information and we use that information to determine to prioritize projects and to determine what the right project is for any given bridge. So, I mean, our capital bridge program is a combination of ongoing maintenance, um, preservation of existing bridges, which is deck replacements, uh, bridge rail replacements, some scour mitigation, so on, painting projects and so on, and then bridge replacement projects. And so like we're not, our program isn't exclusively replacement, it's a combination of replacement and preservation. And that preservation work is really leans on the inspection data and identifying what about a bridge is deteriorating and needs to be it needs to be mitigated, and sometimes that pushes the bridge into a replacement category, and like in many times it's really a preservation project that's just addressing a particular element of the bridge. But we can share that data. I think that's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for the feedback. Right, construction projects on time. This, as you can see, like we are seeing worsening performance on time construction. What we're seeing is that this has been really influenced by the delivery of our ADA curb ramp program, and delays in ADA curb ramp project completion as we've worked through as we've refined how we're delivering those projects. I think one challenge that we've seen across the ADA curb ramp projects is the timing of when right-of-way acquisition and utility relocations are resolved relative to construction. And we've definitely seen construction completion delays as right-of-way acquisition is delayed, or like, through the acquisition process, or utility relocations are delayed. One of the things that we've aimed to do with the ADA delivery program is initiate construction before and do construction phases knowing that right-of-way acquisition is underway, and that's something that we've worked through with Federal Highway process-wise, but that's resulted in some contracts being missing their original construction completion dates and being pushed out. And that's, I think, the biggest factor in this particular performance. What I like I'm hesitant to say that we're going to see an improvement on that before the completion of the ADA delivery program to meet the settlement requirements. I think that we're doing a much better job of addressing the quality of our ADA curb ramp delivery construction contracts, like the plan sets, the quality of the design, so that there's less rework during construction. I think those things have improved, and we're seeing substantial improvement in terms of minimizing and eliminating rework on the ground. But we are continuing to drive curb ramp delivery faster than getting contracts out faster, and that in order to hit all of the settlement milestones. And I think with that, that leads to sometimes like delays in construction completion as we work through issues during construction, which is not great for projects on time, but probably like good for delivering on the settlement timeline in the big picture. Are there questions about this particular KPM? All right, then.
Just a comment, Tova, I think it would also be helpful if the scope of the project has changed and that impacts the schedule, to make a note of that, so we can give credit where it's due, and also, make adjustments as needed with more clarity on why the project is behind schedule.
All right, we can look at that set of data as well. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, and then construction projects on budget. Right now, we are meeting our target here, but we have seen some reduction over time. I think that we've seen material price escalation play out during construction, and that has led to we're seeing that lead to some cost overruns. Of course, there are also change orders that can contribute to this, and as this notes, that could be changes in conditions, environmental issues that come up during construction, such as contaminated materials that are encountered during construction like for example, I think one of the things that we are trying to do to manage this in the longer term is to address how we set our how we address risk in our construction authorization in the first place, and trying to ensure that our that our original construction authorization accounts for uncertainties that we know will play out during construction, and ensuring that we're planning for that financially when we begin a project, and so we're not in the position of needing to add funds and add budget in order to address those risks that do play out during construction. So I think that we're looking at what we can do to set our construction authorizations more thoughtfully with regard to construction phase risks. Are there questions or suggestions about this particular KPM?
I was just curious about why the target changed in 2024 from 80 to 85%.
I need to go back and remind myself what bumped the target up. Travis, are you tracking that? You may know better than I do.
No, I do not remember why this target went up. It can either occur because ODOT requests an increase, or the legislature does. In this one, it certainly could be that because we're exceeding the target substantially, the legislature then says, well, then civics on this one.
That's what you get for doing so well.
The price of good performance is more expectations. Thank you all for your comments and questions.
Okay, well, I trust this is the last slide. So if there are no other questions, then let's please move on to the next agenda item, major projects updates.
I think, Omar, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Michaela, can you stop sharing so I can? It won't let me send a share request. Thank you. Yeah, share sound. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Zach and I will do our best to get us on time here. Afternoon, y'all. Just quick intro. My name is Omar Ahmed. I'm the Central Oregon and Lower John Day Area Manager here in Region 4. Presenting with me today will be Zach. Zach, you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, CIAC. I'm Zach Davis, Value and Project Risk Engineer at the Oregon Department of Transportation. In this role, I lead ODOT's Value Engineering, Project Risk Management, and Constructability Review programs, working to ensure our projects deliver maximum value and are built efficiently for Oregonians. And I was the resident engineer for the Bend North Corridor project.
Thanks, Zach. So just jumping in, I'll give a quick history, and please stop me and ask questions at any point. And I'll remind everyone that this is in a lot more detail and narrative format with the attached memo as well. So as far as the Bend North Corridor is concerned, this is really an extension of the parkway work that was occurring in Bend in the 90s. Before then, there was no formal Highway 97 through town. It kind of just turned into a local city street. And so in the 90s, City of Bend and ODOT worked together to construct the parkway at US 97 as we know it today. Much of that work was completed from the southern city limits of Bend through the downtown section, but left out the northern end. That work was completed in the late 90s. In the early 2000s, ODOT and City of Bend set out to solve the problem on the north end. If you're familiar with Bend, the north end of town is highly commercial. It's where the mall has always been. It's where our Target and Trader Joe's and Lowe's and Home Depot, all those things are, and now Costco as well. So super commercial. It's also where US 97 and US 20 meet. So it kind of serves as a north gateway into town for either folks traveling through or folks like tourists coming for recreation and the like. So in the early 2000s, we set out to start kind of the planning and NEPA process, what we call the Federal Environmental Impact Statement. And the general purpose was to realign US 97 to make it more of a highway or parkway that it should be. Convert existing 97 into a continuation of 3rd Street, like a business route. Have a separated crossing for 97 and the east-west thoroughfares at Cooley and Roble Road, and then improve various local connections through the corridor as well. So this environmental process started in earnest in like 2003 and went on through 2007. And we got to final approval from FHWA on that in 2013. The image you're seeing here is the East DS2 modified alternative. That's a lot of words to say. It was the concept that everyone liked out of, the 5 or 6 that they narrowed in and focused on. The approximate total cost of that work back in 2014 was estimated to be $275 million. So in today's money, that's pretty close to about $375 million. So just keep that in mind. We knew that we would never see that amount of investment in Central Oregon. So we started to kind of distill out what we needed to do and what would be feasible. So one of the things that we looked at first was pulling out what are the goals of this work, right? What's the purpose of this project? What are the goals we're trying to achieve? And first and foremost was mobility during and through and after construction, right? We wanted to reduce congestion on US 97 and US 20. And another way to put that is to increase travel time reliability. So we didn't want to have zero congestion. We just wanted it to be predictable. So if you're driving a truck from California to Washington State, or if you were simply commuting to work, you knew that you could rely on a certain period of time to get through town. We also wanted to focus on increased access for all modes. This is a very car-centric area, but as Ben started to expand, there's a lot of adjacent neighborhoods and schools. So we wanted to make sure that folks could pick their mode of travel through and to the project area. We wanted to also increase safety. The intersection of Cooley and US 97 was pretty high crash incident site. You'd come up, if you're familiar with the 97, it's 65 miles an hour north of town. It would start to neck down to 55, 45. And before you know it, you'd be at stop traffic at the Cooley signal, which led to a lot of rear end collisions. And then something that we felt was really important to us, even at the outset of this project, was ensuring that we had effective management of cost and schedule. We did earn an infra grant on this job, and I'll talk a little about that when I get to our funding slide. And we wanted to make sure we did everything possible to kind of rip the Band-Aid off as far as construction was concerned and minimize impacts. We wanted to use this opportunity to look for innovation, both in staging and what we call maintenance of traffic. So how are we impacting the road during construction, and how are we impacting travelers during construction? And then, of course, we wanted to have a high quality product that wouldn't become a burden on our maintenance folks in the future, something that was safe and ultimately sustainable as a result. So this is where we ended up landing after trying to refine our scope quite a bit. What you're seeing here are north is up, and you're seeing kind of the V where US 97 and US 20 meet on the north end of Bend. Starting on the US 20 segment, Cooley Road was stop controlled and was a big high incident safety intersection. So we planned on constructing a roundabout there on US 20. Roble Lane was a traffic signal that was operationally failing. And so rather than improving a signal, we constructed a roundabout again for operation and safety needs. If you're familiar with the area, this is where our Costco moved as well, inducing quite a bit of traffic to this part of town. There was an original plan as well for the Deschutes County Public Library to have their new site here just to the west. That ended up changing later, but we still planned around it. So generally improvements on 22 roundabouts, and then about 1.5 miles of separated 12-foot multi-use path as well. The The red line that you see, that's business 97, or what was old 97. So we converted that to a business route, did a little bit of a road diet there, and provided space again for about a mile of separated multi-use path and a bunch of ADA corrective work. The dark teal line on the east, on the right, that's a brand new alignment of US 97 that we constructed as part of this project. That included 3 new structures, 4-lane segment of highway, divided median, wide shoulders, and just general improvements there for a new segment and the local system to work around it there at Mills Anderson Road. So starting in 2017, we had started refined scope. We had House Bill 17 provide $50 million of funding through what was named a project called the Cooley Midterm Improvements. That scope focused solely on US 97 and Cooley Road, just that intersection. ODOT then applied for an infra grant in 2017. We did not receive that grant, but we got feedback on what to do better next time. In 2019, we again applied for the infra grant and were awarded $60.4 million towards the larger project. With that in hand, we started concept progression in earnest, creation of a contract for design build procurement, which Zach will spend some time talking about here in a bit. We started right of way, and then we started procurement on that contract. In 22, we selected Kiewit Infrastructure as the best value proposer. Their lead designer was Jacobs. Notice to proceed was issued in June of 22. In July of 23, all of our major design packages were complete. October of 23, US 20 was completed early. Zach will talk about that. And then Christmas Eve of 2024 was our full contract completion date, and we completed the 97 corridor side early as well. So here's a quick breakdown of funding. There's more detail on construction authorization proper in the memo. But just to give you a quick breakdown, about $2.5 million for preliminary engineering. Most of the design on this project was handled under the construction phase due to the design build nature. A large amount was spent on right-of-way for a new highway alignment. We started purchasing right-of-way in 2020, which ended up becoming a peak of, or the start of a peak of real estate in Central Oregon, given folks moving here. But we didn't know that at the time. And then $117 million of construction authorization. About $102 million of that was the contractor's bid amount. This is a video. We're going to skip that.
What was the other?
Sorry. Other included anticipated items. We had some right-of-way contingency that we put in other, given the design build nature. We also had a quiet crossing, so BNSF coordination, I'll say. And that included budget to purchase new signal equipment for BNSF. Does that answer that? Okay. Just to kind of give an idea of how hard we had our foot down on this thing. We had design build as a contract mechanism approved in February of 21. By April, we had let contractors know that this would be the method that we'd be pursuing. It was a 2-phase procurement where you have a request for qualifications first, you shortlist, and then you do a request for proposals. So we did that RFQ in June of 21. In September, we did the RFP. We received technical proposals that winter and price proposals in March. We awarded in March of 22, and they had notice to proceed by June. So with that, I'll hand it over to Zach, and he'll tell us why we picked design build.
So why did Region 4 choose design build for the Bend North Corridor project, and how did it deliver for Oregonians? At the heart of design build's benefits is its seamless integration of team-driven proactive risk management, which drives projects to meet critical cost and time objectives. Unlike traditional design bid build, where the design phase lacks the contractor's perspective on project risk, Design build brings all stakeholders together early to identify, assess, and manage opportunity and threat risks holistically. This unified approach, owner, designer, and builder, enables teams to anticipate fully informed risks such as site constraints, regulatory hurdles, or material availability, and develop creative solutions before they escalate, preventing costly delays and budget overruns. Design build also embeds value engineering and constructability reviews within its risk management framework. These processes are initially leveraged during the alternative technical concepts phase of the delivery model. Pre-award for Bend North Corridor, value engineering optimized traffic control, permanent roadway alignments, bridge abutments, and pavements through alternative technical concepts. Post-award, value engineering further optimized pavements and contaminated material remediation work. For Bend North Corridor, pre-award and post-award value engineering directly contributed to millions in cost savings and months of schedule savings. Next slide. Beyond its strengths in risk management and innovation, design build delivers faster project completion, a critical advantage of the delivery model. So unlike traditional design bid build, where design and construction phases proceed linearly, design build allows these phases to overlap, optimizing the critical path schedule. So according to DBIA, Design Build Institute of America research, design and build projects are delivered 102% faster than design bid build from design through completion, allowing the public to receive the benefits of these projects sooner. This schedule compression translates into significant cost savings. For Bend North Corridor, a $114 million project for design and construction. That's our final estimate. Reducing the delivery schedule by 1 year through design build saved at least $3 million in inflation costs alone. So moreover, design build's lump sum contract structure incentivizes contractors to complete projects early, reducing overhead and equipment costs, which range from $1 to $2 million per month for the contractor and $250,000 a month for the ODOT admin team. While the contractor retains those overhead savings within their organization, as they should, every month delivered early saved the public $250,000 in ODOT overhead alone. So that the money value of time is a primary reason why ODOT and the contractor collectively deployed a attack the schedule mentality to delivering the project. And to illustrate that, the original Bend North Corridor design build schedule published post-award in early 2022 projected completion timelines for US 20, new US 97, and the existing US 97 corridor. In the as constructed condition, the design build approach enabled all three of these segments to be delivered a month and a half ahead of schedule, showcasing the method's ability to exceed expectations. So by prioritizing proactive risk management, innovation, collaboration, value engineering, followed by that attack the schedule mentality and focus on efficiency, design build is a proven delivery model for delivering high value and tangible benefits to the public. Rod, go ahead with your question, Mayor Rod.
So real quick, how does this handle change orders? In other words, unexpected things that pop up.
The change order process is very similar to our design bid build regular process. It's a matter of evaluating the contract. What's the change? There's obviously significant differences because you have a proposal that's involved. And then you also have a design builder who's developing specification language, but we have our standard boilerplate language that is the base for our contract that we would use to evaluate changes and process change orders. Go ahead.
Just going to ask real quick. So does it end up being cheaper in regards to change orders or about the same?
Not necessarily. That's a hard question to ask or answer because it depends on how the risks are allocated in the contract. I wish I could give a more single line answer than that, but really how the risks are divvied up in the contract really depends on your change order process as it would compare to a design bid build.
How many proposers did you have on the project?
We had two.
Yeah, sorry. We had 4 at the RFQ stage, and we shortlisted to 2 for the RFP stage.
Oh, okay. Can I assume that ODOT did the environmental work for the project, and did you do 30% design before you turned it into design build, or how much design did you actually accomplish?
The environmental work was achieved via the FEIS, the environmental impact statement. So it was really done in 2013. It just needed to be updated a few times. The EIS is the most stringent kind of NEPA documentation you can provide. The level of design that we performed prior to soliciting work it varied depending on risk. So for example, our intersection with BNSF, we knew that was a high risk item. We did close to 60% design on that. For the highway alignment itself, we did closer to 10, really just to prove that it was buildable and understand what our right-of-way footprint would start to be. We design build, we don't want to go too far because now we're limiting the design builder's ability to do their job.
Well, I'm sorry, I have one more question. Thank you for that. And did ODOT maintain the community engagement communications part of the project throughout the project life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It slowed a bit during solicitation, right? But for that, personally, I was at every neighborhood association, every council meeting, you name it, throughout the life of this job, making sure folks knew what was going on. Additionally, we were talking to the media at every traffic switch, and the neighborhood associations, businesses, you name it.
Yeah, and I took a lot of phone calls during construction.
They like to know the owner is there, right?
Mm-hmm. Next slide. Thank you, Omar. So this slide presents the block map and individual price centers for the Bend North Corridor project, which comprised of 8 distinct design packages, effectively integrating 8 projects into one cohesive effort. So diagonally across the screen, US 20 features the newly constructed Cooley and Roble roundabouts, marking key intersection improvements along the corridor to address capacity and safety issues. At the bottom, the new access controlled US 97 alignment is depicted in various shades of green and blue, while the existing US 97 alignment work is primarily shown in orange, reflecting the diverse construction phases. So the construction sequence leveraged the design build method's flexibility to manage this complexity. Initially, the majority of construction resources were allocated to US 20, including the Cooley and Roble roundabouts, while the new US 97 alignment remained in the design phase. As US 20 elements were completed and brought online, resources were seamlessly shifted to the new US 97 alignment. This phase approach continued, with resources then transitioning to complete the existing US 97 work. So this strategic resource allocation, enabled by overlapping design and construction phases across these 8 design packages, allowed all 3 of these corridors to be delivered a month and a half ahead of schedule. The design build method's ability to initiate US 20 construction while new and existing US 97 were still being designed was critical to successfully coordinating and efficiently delivering this multi-package project. Next slide. So to put the pace of progress into perspective, this is the US 20 and Cooley Road intersection in April 2023. At this stage, traffic on US 20 was reduced to a single lane in each direction, while construction crews worked within a tightly constrained work zone protected by concrete barriers. Next slide. Just 1 month later, by late May 2023, the US 20 and Cooley Road intersection was operating as a single lane roundabout. By October 2023, 5 months later, the US 20 corridor was functionally complete, with both Cooley and Roble roundabouts operating in their permanent multi-lane configuration. Next slide. Here we're looking north from the Empire Bridge in early July 2023 at what is now the new US 97 alignment. This view highlights the scale of earthwork and grading needed to prepare the corridor for future lanes and structures. On the left, you can see traffic continuing to move through the existing US 97 while construction progressed just a few feet away. And this photo captures how the project was advancing simultaneously across multiple fronts, so keeping traffic flowing while building out new capacity and safety improvements along the US 20 corridor. Go ahead, Tova.
I'm just flagging that it's 2:29 and the meeting is over in a minute.
Okay.
And there's quite a bit more material to share. So I just wanted to take a moment and ask Commissioner Chapman and others how, in the interest of time, how you'd like to handle the presentation and finishing up.
Personally, I have time. I can hang on.
I'm okay.
I have to get going. My actual paying job starts in about a half an hour. So
I
I
probably
want to
have
hear the
another.
final cost of the project.
Pardon?
I want to hear the final cost of this
Yeah.
project.
So
Zach,
my suggestion then is maybe Omar, do we want to jump forward here to I'm like flipping through slides.
I
Uh,
mean, we don't have, like, the final cost of project, Zach, we could just speak to. It's not a slide on here. And then we
Yeah.
could just speak to this really quickly so y'all know the actual impacts of what we're dealing with. So Zach, do you want to just start with that? Sorry, the final cost, where we landed, what authorization was.
Yeah, our authorization for construction is 117 million, and we're sitting at 111 million.
and
So,
there's still some claims that the
Yes.
team's working through, which is what's on the screen right now.
correct. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of close then, obviously, our project team, led by myself and Zach, we kept our foot down from day one on this project to attack the schedule, as Zach mentioned, and literally VE everything that we possibly could in partnership with the contractor and lead designer. That let us finish the project well under budget. Obviously, we have cost risk that continues to exist via our claims. We're in that process now, so obviously can't talk too much about the details on it. But we are pretty proud of our accomplishment on this project, getting it done early and under budget.
I think, Omar, maybe we could flip to slide 18, like slides 18, 19, 20, and sort of sharing how work that was complete, like how work was
Well,
completed early and
good job,
Mhm.
guys. I got to run. Thank you for all the information. Don't know if I'll be on this committee anymore after hearing the beginning of the presentations today. But thank you all for allowing me to be here and learn and chime in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cross.
Hi, Mayor.
Should I jump back in here?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay. So during construction, we averaged a burn rate of about 4 million per month. With resources flowing at that pace, it was critical to keep risk management front and center to avoid costly changes in project and protect project delivery objectives. So as a collective team, ODOT and the design builder recognized early on the importance of practicing proactive risk management around our shared objectives. That meant working together to identify cost, schedule, quality, and safety risk, develop targeted response actions for the most significant risks, and assign those actions to the party best positioned to manage them, whether that was the builder, the designer, or ODOT. So the intent was simple: aggressively pursue our project delivery objectives while managing risk relative to those goals. So in some cases, we invested resources in preparing responses for risks that never materialized, but more often our plans had to be activated either to mitigate or avoid high impact threats or to capture opportunities that would create a buffer against future challenges. So this collaborative approach added real value by keeping uncertainty working in the project's favor. Next slide. So one of the most important outcomes of our risk management approach was the early completion of the US 20 corridor ahead of the original design bid schedule. A major challenge we faced was service delays from the design builder's design firm. An analysis of the as constructed schedule showed that the cumulative design service delay that was realized was 563 calendar days. So in real time, when that delay was playing out, ODOT and the design builder had to work together to identify and implement mitigation strategies, including accelerating design review timelines, requiring overtime, weekend work, and concurrent review of multiple design units from ODOT staff, allowing the number of design units to exceed individual price centers, double shifting construction activities, and increasing ODOT support and resources in quality management. So the as constructed schedule analysis shows that these combined actions reduce the total impact of the design service cumulative delay, not critical path cumulative, by 268 calendar days, which is about a 30% reduction. Without those mitigation measures, this project would have been delivered late, creating significant harm to the traveling public, regardless of who owned that delay. Next slide. We carried the same risk management approach from US 20 into both the new and existing US 97 alignment work. On the new alignment, ODOT faced right-of-way acquisition delays that threatened to impact the schedule. To keep progress moving, the team revised traffic control plans to open new work access areas and negotiated rights of entries on parcels that were not yet fully acquired, allowing construction traffic to move through those choke points and keep earthwork advancing. So even after the design service delays were reduced, downstream impacts still affected the construction schedule critical path. To mitigate these impacts, ODOT authorized a couple of different measures. We allowed the design builder to close US 97 to drill and blast near the Empire Bridge. We provided relief from some of the design builder's proposal commitments by allowing concurrent disruptions to US 20 and US 97 traffic. And we granted relief on seasonal work limitations for asphalt paving and permanent paving markings in lower impact areas. So the as constructed schedule analysis shows that these actions, coupled with the design service delay mitigating actions, avoided a critical path delay of about 188 calendar days and prevented $7.1 million in added costs. So throughout the project, we worked closely with the design builder to manage costs, schedule, quality, and risk. At the same time, there were a number of disputes that arose, but we've already spoke to those, so I'm not sure if we want to move on to other items here. Or, okay.
Yeah, I think we're probably good and over time, right?
Okay.
And I know this definitely turned into a little bit of about how great design build is. It is, but it's a unique tool, right? That requires strong ownership and management, and in this case, we were able to make it work perfectly for us.
Good.
That's all we got.
All right.
Very nice.
Stand up.
No, I was up before. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Zach,
Any other questions for Zach and Omar?
Zach, really good job on that project and working together with a contractor. That's what makes the difference. It's all about decision making. If you can make the decisions and keep everything moving, you'll beat the budget and you'll beat the time. So that's what it takes. So good job.
I appreciate that, but I would be remiss to take all the credit. Of course, it starts with effective leadership, which would be Omar in Region 4. And I've had the privilege of delivering over $250 million in infrastructure to Oregonians, and I could say without hesitation that Omar is one of the strongest and most effective leaders I've ever worked with. So
I'll pay you later, Zach. Thanks.
Good job, Omar.
All right. Thanks again, guys. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time and appreciate those of you who are able to stay over. But we have a lot of uncertainty, especially with a special session. So I don't want to speculate on when our next meeting will be or the makeup. But Travis, if you want to just wrap up next steps and let us know how we'll be all apprised of whatever happens when the special session actually comes to a vote.
I think he had to step away, but my understanding is any changes to the committee as outlined in the bill, if passed, would be effective in January. So we'll still be in the current format for the rest of the year. We haven't worked out exactly what will be on the agenda for the rest of the year. We'll have our last biennial report probably in November, December to look at. Also, probably we were talking about some of those things on the deeper dives into projects. We might bring that as an agenda item as we're looking at the work that this committee will maybe taking on in the future. And we appreciate the feedback on the KPM items today too. We'll try to get any as much of that taken care of and addressed before we bring to the OTC next. So.
Okay, thanks for clarifying the timelines, Sarah.
Sure thing.
Any other comments or questions for the good of the order? All right, if that's all, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you. Bye.